Hello and welcome to Canopy, the show where I attempt to make just about everything from the ground up. I am in the beginning stages of my dragon she shed on wheels. Evangeline is the name of my dragon that I'm building, and she is going to be a sleeping dragon that is sitting on top of a trailer. I'm looking at about 6 feet by 10 feet. The trailer itself is a 4x8 trailer. I will be building a little bit off of the sides of that trailer. But before I can get started doing that construction, I have to figure out a model for this thing. I've gone online and printed up some paper versions of dragons. They weren't exactly what I wanted for the aesthetic of my dragon, so right now I'm playing Frankenstein, and I am taking parts of one, altering it, shifting things around, and reassembling to get what I want. It was just much easier to stick with these paper models, and I will put a link in the description of this video for the Etsy shops that I purchased these two paper models for. They're really great projects. I did it in black here, but you could use a rice paper and turn it into a lantern. This is a really cute baby dragon, which I fell in love with. It was a little too young for what I wanted for my dragon, so I went to find an older looking dragon head. And so what I am working on currently is merging these shapes into a usable form that I can then take from there and begin to produce a wood structure with. The plans for both of these are a print and cut. They're designed for 8x10 pages. It comes with all the numbers labeled. You can see I have chalked up this paper. You print out all of it, and then you take a pair of scissors and you manually cut out the pattern and assemble with the instructions that it comes with, matching the numbers. Because I knew I was going to need to do some altering to these pieces, I went ahead and take that paper pattern, ran it through both Photoshop and Illustrator so I could make a cut file. This head is really big and the body is too small for me to get the scale that I needed. So creating those cut patterns would allow me to just run it through the Cricut, have the Cricut do all of my cutting, which actually saved my hand. That was a big reason why I did it. The number of times I might need to print these out till I get a refined model for what I need. If you've watched my vision board video where I made the little tiny houses, it was a very simple shape, and I went through 4 or 5 different variations of what that one simple shape was, of printing, cutting, reassembling to get the shape that I needed. Keeping that in mind, I knew I was going to want to have some cut files that I could just go back to and alter here and there. That process seriously took me all of the month of June, and I put in some long hour days. You know, there were like days where it was 8 to 10 hours of me on a computer, and I have a little bit of footage of that process of how I went about altering things, so I can go ahead and run that footage now. So I'm in the process of sorting out the paper model. I did all of mine in black because my dragon ultimately will be black. I will be removing this head, keeping part of this body, flipping the tail so that it goes into a different orientation, figure out a way to apply this head to it, and of course the scale is completely off. So at the moment I've decided that this head scale is fine to work with, and looking at it I was guessing that this head on a body that would be about 3 times the size would kind of work out for me. So you know, it's a big guessing game. Of course I could probably try to figure out a way to digitally make this thing happen with working out the size differences, but that's a little too much for me. So what I've done is I've just picked a random number which gives me the least amount of paper waste, and that multiplier is around 2.75, so almost 3. Multiplying by 3 made me need a lot more paper, and that has seemed to be printing out okay. I haven't yet assembled. I've been working on printing parts. I keep saying printing, but cutting up the body parts. So unfortunately, some of these files are way too large for me to get onto the Cricut, and I've had to chop things up multiple times. I've just run into one where I was in the process of doing the cutting, and this one here is definitely too large for my cutter. It ends up being 13 and a half inches, but my papers are only 12 by 12. Even if I could use the 12 by 24 cutting mat, the paper itself is still only 12 by 12. So I have to give myself breaks that allows for me to cut and glue. I'm going to take this dotted line, break the pattern here. So there's this bit, right? I cut this pattern into one. This is file already 36B that I've named. So now I have to add another number because I've already cut it in half once and it still wasn't enough. So there was a lot of this back and forth. Oh, now I got to go back to multiple programs. So 36B1 is what I'm going to call this one. And then once I have the JPEG, I then have to go into Illustrator, open 36B1 1. And now I have to turn this into an SVG. So trace, make and expand. This always gives me all of the background crap that I don't want. So I have to go in and delete out all the white space. Bang. Bang. And if I move that around the artboard, I should have a full-on cutout. Save as. And I want a regular SVG. So this is the tedious process I've been doing to get the file. I then go over to my Cricut cutter, the Cricut workspace. This was the other part that fit, so I'm going to go ahead and upload that new one. As you can see, this was my original 36B, so I'm going to go ahead and upload the new version. There's the new 36B1, and I have been using a multiplier of 2.75. So I just pick one of the dimensions. Let's see, getting my calculator out. 2.445 times 2.75. That gives me, I'm going to make sure that I lock this so that it automatically does my adjustments. And so I'm going to change this dimension to 6.724, close enough. And then I need to weld. And I've been just going in and adjusting so I can get the most out of my paper. And that should do me. Hi, baby girl. All right, I have cut out piece 36A and B1 and B2 so that I can piece them all together to create one piece of 36, which is the original pattern. I am then labeling the original parts as they are labeled in the print version. So on the back side of this dragon, my trailer is going to be under here. I need this tail to move its position. I also was going to eliminate this back section and give it more of a three-dimensional shape on this side like I have here, but then I realized that my intent was always to have a section of stained glass going on this trailer. So this nice flat surface is going to give me a space to have a giant window here. Alright, so where that leaves me is I'm beginning to do some of the assembly, and after printing out a lot of the parts, I realized that the scale that I have blown this up to for the body is so much larger and cannot handle the 60-pound weight paper that I originally had this on. So started the tail here, which I think I'm going to alter anyway. The tail was a little bit flimsy as it starts getting into bigger parts, so some of the larger pieces I'm beginning to back them. I have a 110-pound weight cardstock that I'm gluing these onto and then cutting those out so that I can assemble something with a little bit more stability. I'm going to go ahead and back all of this paper pattern. I need the tail separate, which I already know I'm going to alter because on this scale, I want something that's a little bit sleeker to match the head a little bit, and maybe something a little bit more like the way the style of these horns are. My gosh, the noise! I swear, every time these cameras go on. Anyhow, I'm going to elongate this tail and thin it out a bit, so I either will do that or slice part of this pattern, bring it in some, and then I might add some barbs or something, some kind of extra texture to the tail so it looks a little bit more interesting. So I will have the tail as one separate part, the body as one separate part, and the head, and then I'm going to have to create some new pieces to figure out how to join them seamlessly. So just wanted to talk through my process and where I'm going. I'm going to go ahead and put my head down, get to work, probably throw on some headphones while I bulk up these pieces to get them stronger and continue to assemble. And to assemble, I am just using some Elmer's glue and a glue stick for adding these bits on. What's inside? What's in there? What's in there? Oh. Where are you going? Why are you running? That'll do, that'll do, that'll do. Let's get this cleaned up. I have the paper model just about resolved. I'm happy with the transition of this head. The last thing I have to do is to get this tail good and incorporated, and then I will be cutting open the section that's going to be the door. The door is actually going to be back here. I was originally going to make this same model out of the plywood to get a feel for the stitch and glue process. I gotta be honest with you, after really thinking about it, number one, I am fairly confident in my abilities to do this stitch and glue process with all of my wood bending and other woodworking skills. I'm not really nervous as I was initially thinking about this process, and I think that I can just kind of jump right into the larger scale one since I'll be paneling smaller pieces and smaller sections together at a time. So as I'm going along, if I do screw up, it would only be screwing up a small section at a time, and I think that there's enough room in there for those smaller pieces to come together and me to have a learning curve. Other thing is that it's an awful lot of materials, time to go into recreating this thing in the wood form and then have to repeat it again in the larger scale. And to be honest, I know me. I am going to lose momentum if I have to build this thing twice, and essentially that's what I would be doing. So what I have decided would be much more beneficial is to finish it out with the paper, deal with the design details that I'm going to be putting in, and then spend my time and energy actually building the base. I'm going to build a cardboard structure of the trailer, spend some time cutting up scale size of sheets of cardboard that mimic 4x8 sheets of plywood that I can then cut those into what I need to fit so that I can really get a feel for what I need to deal with budgetary wise on the plywood for the base. At this point, I am going to break this video into two parts on the model itself because it has been 2 months and I have reworked this model several times. Yeah, I need a refresher. I need to restart where I am, and the next bits of stuff about working out the model is I really think going to require its own amount of time. It really should just be its own video because it's going to be me doing some testers and working out the design details. So here's what happened. In the very beginning, the original cut file is this small guy right here. This little itty bitty baby dragon is the original of one of the dragons. I also printed a trophy head, which is the head that is on this one right here. Then I went, okay, and I thought I was really happy. Oh, this is great. This is worked it out. Put a paw in. Made a tail, started the starts of a tail, and knew I would be putting in a wing somewhere. And I thought, oh, now it's time to work out the trailer part and how much plywood I was going to need to build up the base. So I made this, my model of the trailer, and then I cut up a bunch of 2-scale 4x8 sheets, what will be 4x8 sheets of plywood scale, right? So 1x2, so that I could cut these up in pieces and write down how I was cutting them. So I end up with a cut sheet of how many pieces of plywood I need and where I'm getting the cuts, which became this. And then I went, oh, I need to see what this looks like with the dragon on it, right? So here we go. Have that dragon, have the base, pop the dragon onto the base, and then all hell breaks loose. Because I look at the thing and I go, oh, this is way too small for the base of this, and I did not scale up enough. And if this is the piece I'm using as my next piece to measure off of and scale up from, it looks funky on here. Then I start noticing things like this entire panel I know I want to be glass, and that's going to be a heavy weight here in the back, and that if the door was here, that's going to also pose a problem as far as the mechanics of opening the door is going to be off to the side. So I knew I needed to go back to reprinting the model. And then also what was bothering me is the head was okay, but then as I looked at it more and more, I thought the ratio of the head to the body, in this scale, yeah, it works, but I also wanted the head to be prominent. You know, I want you to know it's a dragon, not just some sleeping goat or something else, right? I needed to also expand the head. And so then I was like, all right, well, now I got to do this again. And so this was like my third or fourth go of reprinting the whole thing, recutting the whole thing. And I was thankful that I had converted all of these files into SVG format, because all I had to do was adjust my dimensions, scale it up a bit more, and just have another go at having it cut the thing. But that still took time. It took probably about a good week. So here's the new one. This is a much better fit. I have already cut out the section that's going to be the window. I put some foam core in this time. And I'd like to put in a wing over where this is going to be the stained glass, but I want a hint at a wing, and this will also serve as a rain guard for that window. I'm going to call this video here because it's been 2 months of making and I need a reset. I want to mentally, have a cleanse. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed watching this journey so far. Please like, share, and subscribe if you have not done so already. And stick around to watch this dragon she shed all come together.